All right. Hey, everyone. Jason here from Camps with Friends. Today I've got Max with me from Brant Lake Camp. Say hi to everyone, Max.
How we doing, everybody? Good to be with you.
Yeah, yes. It's super great to have you here. I'm really excited to talk about your summer camp, Brant Lake Camp. Max, I'm gonna kind of give you the floor. Let's kind of start with 30 seconds on what Brant Lake Camp is and who you are and let's go from there.
Yeah, appreciate it, Jason. So Brant Lake Camp, we'll go with a little bit of background and history for those of us who don't know about us. We're located in the Adirondack Mountains. They're a little lesser known to the rest of the country, but they're actually the largest, I believe, protected area in America, bigger than Yellowstone. They're in New York State. Again, you don't think of New York State and think of, protected wilderness, but that is
Beautiful
where we
trees and
are.
lakes.
Yeah, full trees and lakes, untouched like waters, that kind of a thing, which is about 4 hours north of New York City. And actually, if you want to get closest big city, 2 hours south of Montreal. Just to give you an idea, we're pretty far up there. We're actually north of Toronto. So we're
Oh,
pretty far up there in terms of how far north we get. This upcoming summer will be summer 108.
holy cow.
Actually, all 108 years in my family.
Oh,
So my great uncle founded the camp in 1917. Then my grandfather took over, my father, and then me, which we're very proud of. I'm sure there's other camps that are in that range, but there can't be too many.
yeah.
One other thing that we also are proud of in our history and lineage is that all four of our owners, directors in my family come from a background in education. So all of us spend a lot of time either as deans of students, heads of house, and certainly teachers and PE teachers and coaches. I know that sounds normal when you're at a sports camp like Brant Lake. We'll get to that in a second. But I know in today's world, a lot of camp owners come from corporate backgrounds, and we're very proud to be still from an educational background. And we very much look at camp through an educational lens always, and certainly as long as I'm around, looking forward.
Very cool.
With regards to what do we offer at Brant Lake, I kind of hinted at it. We are a camp for kids who like sports. I always say you have to have three things in common to go and enjoy. You have to be an active kid. You have to enjoy playing because, 1/3 to 2/3 of your day, depending on choice, will be playing a sport. The rest, traditional kind of camp activities, of course, including waterfront. If you're looking at us, you can see the lake behind me.
Uh-huh.
And the last one is you have to be a pretty nice guy because, like every camp, there's communal living and interpersonal, and somebody might sit on your bed or touch your things. I know that one of the reasons you send your kids to camp is to develop those interpersonal skills, and we certainly aren't looking for finished products. We're very much looking for people that are willing to be molded and shaped and helped along the path to becoming more, healthy members of society and on their way to being productive adults. But yeah, those are the three common threads for kids that are going to enjoy Brant Lake Camp. Oh, and I should have last mentioned, because I know that there's a lot of different camp sessions out there. At Brant Lake Camp, we are a primarily 7-week camp. We do offer a half summer option, and some kids choose half summer option all the way through. That said, we are not a session camp. What do I mean by that is we don't double sell beds. So last summer, we have 350 boys. That's kind of our capacity. About 100 of those boys signed up for half summer, or actually even less if you're younger. We'll talk about that more later if you'd
Hmm.
like. But did not double sell the beds. So of those 100 kids who chose shorter session, about 70% ultimately ended up extending. And because we
Okay.
don't double sell the beds, you always have that option. If you and your child want to go, and then the second week it can't be like, actually, I want to do the whole thing. That's something that we are able to do. On the flip side, some people don't take the half summer and go on family trips every year, and that's also completely okay.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about your lake, that beautiful lake that's in your background there, Max.
Yeah, we're very lucky. Certainly wasn't me. It's year 107, but we got hit the lottery with location. Uh, We are a freshwater lake, sand bottom. You think we're that far north, and you'd be right that in June it's refreshing. But by August, I would say that it's a little too warm for my taste. You know, you got to
Okay.
dive down. You got to dive down to get that refreshing part again. And then through most of July, you're hitting like that kind of perfect equilibrium, and that's luckily when camp is mostly operating.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about a 6 mile lake by about 1 mile, almost a perfect half marathon if you want to bike or run around.
Nice.
And it's picturesque. You know, we're surrounded by these like rolling, they're really more like hills than mountains. But as you can see in this picture, and you can certainly see on the websites, you get these like layers of mountains that are tree covered, and you know, this warm pine tree surrounding all around the lake, and honestly all around camp.
Very cool. Very cool. Um, that size that you mentioned, we have a lake down here in Dallas called White Rock Lake, and it's about I think 10 to 12 miles around. So probably quite a similar size. Let's talk about your activities, right? You've mentioned that you're a boys camp. You mentioned that you're a sports boys camp. Let's do you know all of the activities by heart?
Oh man, I mean, you're a camp man. You know that that's going to be very hard. We could spend a
Uh-huh.
decent amount of time going through a list, but I guess I'll break it down more generalized. I think that might be an easier way to cover topics.
Sure.
Um, so as we said, sports are going to be mandatory about a third of your day. What does that look like? Every kid that goes to camp will have one sports instruction period in the morning. That is actually ability grouped and just by age.
Okay.
So, you know, the 10-year-olds only have to play with the 10-year-olds. We're lucky. We're a big camp, right?
Yep.
There's going to be about 50 kids for every grade at camp, or age
Uh-huh.
group, we call them, at camp, which means you don't have to play really with kids older or younger than you to get a great game or great instruction. But we do ability group, and some people raise their eyebrow at that, only for instruction. Now, why do we do that? Because as a guy who's done PE for a lot of years in a family that comes from education and coaching, when you're teaching in a school, you get 30 kids in your PE classroom, and inevitably, as a PE guy, you have to teach to the middle,
Yep.
at the middle. And the kids that are very experienced look at the lesson and the thing, and they're bored and they're joking around and messing around. And the kids that are brand new beginners are kind of like hugging themselves and being like, I don't want to do that. I can't do that. And often sometimes feign saying they don't like it, which is really just code word for they're not comfortable.
Yeah.
So at Brant Lake, we ability group for instruction so that when you look to your left and you look to your right, there's about 6 to 8 other guys that play, hit, kick, swim like you do. So that's an important part of the philosophy, particularly with instruction. For games, of course, good to be sometimes stronger, sometimes weaker, have a little bit of experience with both, work on your team skills, teammate skills, and all that. So one period of the day, sports instruction. One period of the day will be an assigned game. And when we say that, it means that the kids didn't have a choice in what they were doing there. So those 2 periods of the day are assigned and will be sports.
Yep.
The rest of the day is some combination of your choice and lake activities.
Okay.
In general, you'll have one lake instruction period, which will include every other day a swim lesson or a boating lesson, which is including kayaking, canoeing, sailing, fishing, wakeboarding, skiing, wake surfing, rotating, and a swim lesson.
Yep.
And a free swim when you and the kids your age group kind of come to the lake and can enjoy any of those things I just mentioned, or just playing in the sand on your own for about an hour.
Yeah.
The other periods of the day come down to elective periods, and you kind of hinted at it. I don't know, there's maybe 50 electives at Brant Lake Camp. We actually run our elective periods very differently than most, Jason. It's worth saying we have a dynamic schedule.
Okay.
Which means that every day, although there might be, like, let's say there's 50 electives, every day there'll be 2 elective periods. And on the board in the morning, again, we're just talking about age group or grade. So those 50 kids will look at the board just for them. There'll be 6 to 8 electives listed for each of those elective periods.
Yep.
The kids, when that elective period comes, meet on the hill or their meeting spot with the 50 boys their age, the 20 or so counselors that work with them, and the 4 mature adults, we call them key staff, that work with them. And that group
Or
of
mature adults.
4 mature adults, which are basically people, we don't can consider our counselors mature adults, and we should talk more about that in a later. Mature adults, people that are 28 to 78,
Yep.
that are teachers, educators, coaches, parents. But anyway, that group of 50, 20, and 4 meet before every elective, and the kids decide where they're going. We don't know where they're going. The
Oh,
program directors don't know where they're going, but I have confidence in our mature adults to figure out who's going where, assign the appropriate amount of counselors and the appropriate amount of mature adults, key staff to
yep.
each of those activities. So we really have dynamic scheduling on a day-to-day basis, even a little bit on a period-to-period basis, which really allows kids autonomy over a large portion of their day and what they want to do. Obviously, we think that's much better. Kids don't know what they want to do at the start of camp. Certainly, they don't know what they always want to do at the start of like February.
Yeah.
Some camps tell you to lock in this block school schedule. It's not best for kids. It's best for program directors. It's certainly not easy as a program director, other than we have about 5 or 6 different program directors at Brant Lake that kind of run their little mini fiefdom of 50, 20, and 4.
Yeah.
That system allows for this flexibility in the schedule and allows for these campers to have much more, decision in what they want to do at camp.
It obviously sounds like a lot of fun. What are some of these electives? Are we talking like paintball, gaga, or are we doing like, what is it, glass blowing or woodworking, or like what are the kids doing in some of these electives?
Great question. I'll try and list a few.
Yeah.
I will tell you, when I went to camp, 30 something years ago, the electives were all non-sports.
Yep.
And, you're right. You hit it. You hit some woodworking and great arts program in clay and paper mache and pottery. And the arts is very strong. Music, drama is huge, 2 show nights a week. Archery. There's a ninja course new last summer, but there's always been a climbing wall and adventure area. Fishing, things like that, hiking, nature. So there's always been a strong program there. But we've realized in the past 30 years since I've been a camper, that some kids are just sports nuts, Jason. So we also, in those elective periods, will offer like a flag football game sometimes, or a World Cup soccer.
Yep.
We got a golf simulator. Kids might want to go play 4 holes at Augusta, or any number of different sports, 3-on-3 basketball tournament, just batting practice, mixed in. Again, we don't offer every one of those every elective period, but those are the types of things that you'll see on the board on a typical day.
Yeah. List quickly for me as many of the sports that you offer as part of your program.
Yeah, good question. I'll break it into 2 categories, Jason. There's the core sports, which are mandatory, and those are baseball, basketball, soccer, tennis, flag football.
Okay.
So those 5 sports, every camper will have instruction in and will play some games in. Awesome. Those 5. And then there's secondary sports, which we run great programs from, just not mandatory. And that is hockey, but really roller hockey. That is golf. That is lacrosse. Okay. I might be missing one. Oh, volleyball is pretty popular as well, and softball, which I kind of lump in with
baseball.
I lump in softball with baseball, and I already mentioned golf.
Yep.
And by the way, Jason, I don't want to do the aquatics injustice. I know they are sports, but I put them in like a 3rd bucket. So we'll put those on the side. Do you even have a pool, or do you just do it in the lake? Man, Jason, I'm trying really hard to avoid having a pool. I really don't want to. Camp has actually been expanding in we don't have to talk about it, but we run a girls program as well, Brant Lake Sports Academy for girls. Okay. It's a 60-person program, and that is actually a session camp, more similar to what, you guys have in Texas, and more similar to what most of the country does. Yep. So there's 2 12-day sessions and then a 3-week session at the end of the summer. Yep. And that program has been at capacity with a wait list for a while of 60 girls. Yep. And we're getting a little bit of push to try and increase the size of that. And it is owned and operated on our grounds and by us. But Brant Lake Camp for boys is kind of at the, let's say, bottom of the hill, right next to the lake. Yep. And Brant Lake Sports Academy for girls is kind of at the top of the hill and a little further from the lake. Yeah. So if that program were to expand in the future to 100 girls or something like that, it's something we would have to consider, just because of the length of that walk. You know, getting around camp's huge. You know, I think we're like 50 something acres.
Wow.
Just getting from like the soccer field to the lake, you got to be in decent shape. So for the girls to go from the top of the hill to the bottom, that's a trek.
Yep.
And if that were to expand, we would consider it. But with the boys' camp, we don't want to expand. I want to know every single kid's name. I want to know every single parent's name, Jason.
Yep.
And right now, that's something that we have. At that 350 number feels kind of magic to me.
Yep.
We've in our history gone a little bit bigger, and you kind of lose track of that, real personal feel, which I really don't want to do.
Yep. I've you mentioned 350 kids. You mentioned you're 107 years old. Did you say? I'm
107
guessing
finished. So this will be, I'm
107
already 2025, 108 coming, Jason.
I'm guessing you don't struggle with finding counselors. Let's talk about your counselors a little bit. How many staff do you hire every year, or how many people do you have total, and then how many is that kind of hired as counselors?
Yeah, so let's start with what I wanted to mention earlier. One of our differentiators at Brant Lake, and that's our key staff.
Okay.
So, 108 summers, but we have just unbelievable. We're so lucky to have the continuity we have at the top. And when most camps talk about the top, they talk about their owners, directors. Well, that's 108 years straight through. So certainly we got that.
Yep.
And my co-director, Zach Cohen, who's one of my best friends, is going to be his 30th year. He's only 35 years old, but it's his 30th year. Alexa Minion, it's her 15th year, one of our directors. My father, Richie G, is a director emeritus. It's only his 70-something year. Andy Berlin, another one of our directors, is only his 40-something year. And those are the directors. And then you get to that next rung, the key staff rung. And we had 50 key staff members last summer, Jason, not directors and not counselors. So these are that 28 to 78-year-old window. We had 50 of them that just worked with campers. So I'm not even counting the head of the maintenance and the kitchen, who are both 30+ year men.
Yep.
Abu and Charlie Maxim, but just 50 adults that work with campers. There was 50. And of that group, I'd guess 40 of them are over 5 years, and the majority of them are over 10. So you're talking about the most important people, our key staff members.
Yep.
We just have this huge pool and just unbelievable continuity. And honestly, I think that's what the special sauce is at Brant Lake. I think that's what it is. It's just that continuity, the familiar faces, that family atmosphere that we're so lucky to have. And I don't take that for granted ever. But with you kind of were speaking to the counselors, so let's jump to that. The counselor population, we hire about 150 staff members every year, not fresh, but about 150 staff members. Of that group, you never know year to year, but about 50% are returning. Yep. There's cycles. They're mostly college kids, so some of them age out. You get some of them 3-4 years, and they have to rotate. But let's say about half are returning, so that's about 75. And then about the other 75, we get, making it up, about 40% international college kids, about 40% American college kids, and roughly 20% former campers. And we really like that mix of people.
Yep.
So where do we get them? With internationals, we use the agencies like every camp. I'm sure that you guys are well aware of what agencies. We're in touch with most of them, if not all of them.
Yep.
But I will say that we have such great referral networks now that we don't use them as much as we used to.
Sure.
Like we have, there's now people my age, Jason, that were friends when I was counselors with him, right? Yeah. And now they're PE teachers in Edinburgh. So they're sending me people direct placement from their school that they know are going to be great. That's the best. So we're very lucky to have a couple great referral hubs in like Scotland and England and Australia and New Zealand, just on the internal network. Nice. But we still use the referral networks, and obviously we need them for visas, even if we don't. And then in terms of American college kids, I will say, Jason, it is a battle. It is a year-long battle.
Hmm.
And why is it such a battle? Because of the all boys camp. So we do have about a third of our staff are female. I don't know how camp existed with male only staff when I was a camper. It seems crazy to me. But now that we're not as crazy, we got a lot of female staff. Um, and we have, I don't know, 5-to-1 applicants, female staff to male staff. We have to turn away a lot of really good female staff candidates.
Oh, wow.
Male American staff members, on the other hand, we are always, always, always on the lookout for good people, and are just trying, starting, in early September, all the way through to get the best people we can from that American college age
Yeah.
male counselor pool. But otherwise, other than that very specific subgroup, yeah, you kind of get an idea of like where we get all of our people.
Yeah. What would you, so kind of complete question out of left field here. What would you say to a summer camp owner slash director who was starting out? Do you think that there is room for more summer camps? There's probably not room in the Northeast, right? But in the rest of the country, what would you say to them? How would you go about doing that? Try and keep your answer under like an hour.
I'll go quick. I would say the short answer is yes, there's absolutely room for more camps. I hinted at the start that, we're long session overnight camps, but if you find your niche in the market, Jason, I think there's certainly space. There's new camps opening all the time that go from 0 kids to 300, 500, even 1,000 kids in those short session camps. That's not obviously my background,
Yeah.
but I know they exist. And I think the key is, you got to be great with your marketing and your internal network and things like that, have good people around you. But I think the biggest key is finding the right location, the right niche in the market. Where are you? Who are you tailoring your camp to? What socioeconomic groups, location, geographic. There's a lot of factors to it, but absolutely, there's room in the market and certainly in the camp market. And just as a big picture thing, Jason, I think that camp is more important than ever.
Yep.
And I don't see that trend reversing. So
Yep.
yeah, I think that there is.
That's really great. To kind of finish off here, Max, has anyone ever told you look like Dave Matthews?
I have. I've heard Dave Matthews. Yeah, I have a similar hairline. There you go. No, similar hairline. I guess I got a little more hair than Dave. But I happen to be, I'm 38 years old. I'm the Dave Matthews fan, obviously.
Who isn't a Dave Matthews fan, right?
Saratoga Performing Arts Center, SPAC, is about an hour south. We actually send our kids to Saratoga for concerts or things like that pretty regularly. And even as a camper, I actually saw Dave Matthews when I was like 14 at Brant Lake Camp at Saratoga, because he plays a summer session there. So
of course he did.
Big fan, and I've seen many a show right down in the backyard of Brant Lake.
All right. Well, Max, it was super great talking to you. In a second here, I'll just stop the recording and then we can carry on and kind of finishing up. But Brant Lake sounds like an amazing summer camp. It's hard to get in there, isn't it? Like, you guys, do you have a wait list?
Yeah, it depends on the age, right, Jason? So like if you are starting camp 11 and up, inevitably there might be a spot because somebody may have left and you don't get as many new campers that age. But yeah, last summer we were full. Our 7-year-old group had 24 spots. It was a new offering, 2-week offering, talk about short session. And we filled up those 24 spots in September and had to turn some people away, unfortunately. So depends a little bit on your age, but yeah, we were very fortunate to have a strong enrollment and on a good groove these days.
Awesome. Well, thanks very much, Max. As I said, I'm going to hit stop recording now, and then we can kind of just finishing up. It's been awesome learning more about you. Yeah, hitting stop right now.